Today on the podcast, I have my beautiful friend Nerida Mills with me. Nerida and I come a few years at least. We've come some ways and we've done some work together, and we've both been on this beautiful journey of stepping into our truth and stepping into our purpose and helping people in this world. Now, I am going to hand over to you, beautiful, and I'm going to get you to introduce yourself to the community, to the audience.
Sure.
And then I am really excited to see where this conversation is going to go to. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. And I believe it was 2019 we would have met. So it would be a good 5 years now. Time flies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you've got the dates. I don't have them, but yeah, it's been a while.
That's okay.
Awesome.
So yeah, my name is Nerida. My passion really lives in teaching people how to live their life as medicine. It's a huge passion of mine. I believe that life holds all of the guidance that we need for the answers that we seek, because it is a reflection of who we are, and those answers live within us. So that's really my big passion. Where I've come from, I've been working as a coach for the last 12 years. I'm a psychosomatic master. I've been doing that for the last 7.5, 8 years. And I've been on my own spiritual journey since I was, goodness me, actively since I was about 21. So 21 years ago now. So it's been quite a while. I've worked with some pretty incredible humans through that time. Had the pleasure of working one-on-one with an incredible Indian yoga monk for about 10 years. I've worked with some shamans from Peru. I've worked with energy healers and learnt off all of them. And that was really where a lot of my focus started. Was I wanted to understand the fundamentals, building blocks to experience, and I believe that is in the energy. So that's where everything started. And then using the law of attraction, I manifested some pretty cool stuff. However, I found that I wasn't able to maintain the things that I was manifesting. And so I felt like there were some pieces missing. That led me to the world of the mind and understanding human behavior, thus becoming a coach. And I found that coaching really, for me, it wasn't really like mind-blowingly new information. A lot of it was how I was living my life, but what it did provide was a structure to be able to help others with. So that was really powerful and deepen my understanding around the pieces that I was potentially missing as far as the interrelationship between myself and others was concerned. And then, yeah, psychosomatics kind of filled in the last piece for me in regards to, had the understanding around the energetics of things, had the understanding around the mind of things, and I was still really, really, can I swear?
Yeah, we'll just put it on the podcast. It's fine.
Really, really fucking mad. I was still angry a lot of the time. And so I had all of this anger within me, but I couldn't explain it. Do you know what I mean? So it was really frustrating because I'm like, I'm doing all the right things. Like I'm meditating every day. I'm, really consciously working with my thought pattern. I'm listening to the positive audios. I'm getting out there. I'm moving my body, like I was doing all the right things. But my experience within myself was still quite negative, I guess. I remember there was this one turning point for me where I was sitting at the beach and I was homeschooling my kids at the time, and they were playing in the waves, and they were only young still. They're all old and grown up now except for one, but they were all still quite little. And so there's anyone with little kids knows you take them to the beach and there's some peace for a little bit. They entertain each other and they play and whatever. And so they were playing in the waves, and there was seagulls flying over, and the sun was setting, and I was sitting there, and I was just like, I should be happy right now, and I'm not, and I don't know why. And so psychosomatics for me really bridged that piece, understanding how emotions actually become trapped in the body and how we cycle through the experience of reliving those emotions until we can actually finish the cycle of experiencing the emotion in order to release it. So that to me really brought a lot of freedom in my life. And it was after that last piece came into play and I was able to bring all that together that my life really started to change quite significantly. So yeah, there's my introduction.
Well, you know what? My first question was going to be is, tell me a little bit about your journey, but you just went straight in there. And It's beautiful. And this is I want to bring this awareness to people, because if you think that it is a one and done deal, you're going to have your awakening and it's going to be done. We got news for you.
No,
It's
yeah.
not. You need
Look,
to
that's certainly not
keep
been my
on.
experience. I know that there are
Yeah.
some people that feel complete for a period of time after an awakening, and for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
because you've got to kind of get used to your new baseline.
Yeah.
But the reality is that we are infinite, which
Yeah.
means that we're not only infinite in our potential, we're also infinite in our inner scape, in
Yeah.
in our inner worlds. And so to I believe, based on my experience, it's a delusion that I choose to hold, that the purpose of my life is to experience all of myself. And I believe that the purpose of all of our lives is to do that. And when we do that, we actually are able to give all of ourselves in the way that we're destined to do so. So
Yeah. It's
if
beautiful. Yeah.
if that is true, then, and let's just play in the delusion. If that is true, then, how many layers deep do we go? It's endless. So there's always,
That onion, right?
yeah, there's
You
always
peel
something to
back and there's
uncover.
another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, ooh, that's that's a new one. Okay. And sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit, I didn't really like that, was painful. That was a hard one,
Yes.
and so
Yeah.
they can go either way, but it's you know, ownership of all of ourselves really does provide the power,
Mm.
because when we can consolidate these parts and actually use them for the like the resourceful expression of it,
Mm.
which is only possible when you own it, then all
Mm.
of a sudden you have access to so much more of yourself to give, so
Yeah.
much more of yourself to experience. And so our capacity to receive and to give expands just by doing
Yeah.
that, which is super fun, because it's not just, how we do anything is how we do everything. So that impacts how we're able to receive of life, of love, of abundance, of everything, how I'm able to receive and, give in contribution, give in my love, be felt, be heard, be
Mm.
seen, all of those sorts of things. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fun dance, but I agree with you. I don't think it stops.
See, yeah, it is. And that's the thing, is you just use that word. It's a dance, right? There's the dance between the lightness and the heaviness. Like you were saying, some people have this this period of just sitting in the bliss of awakening, right? And the others just dive straight back into, and but that's because everybody's got a different life, right?
Mm.
Um, so it's the dance, but there was something else I was going to mention.
Can I just
Don't you
share
love it
something
when
on that?
yeah, go for it.
So I feel like I've had multiple times in my life where I felt like like I've had a complete rebirth.
Yeah.
And whilst I'm the same person through that, there's been elements of myself that have dropped away that just no longer, I just can't even access them. And then
Mm.
there's other
Oh,
parts
yeah.
that have been awakened in that. And some of the experiences that I've had in that, like I can give you two very distinct experiences, completely opposite in the fallout. And so one was that I went into a seminar with an organization called MJB Seminars, which I've been working with for the last 2 years, I think. 2.5 years, let's just say 2.5 years.
Mm.
And I started working with them because I love their work so much, because it was so profound for me. And it was really interesting because I have been working on my relationship with my dad since I was, let's say, 17. My first port of call for that relationship, or working on that relationship, was a level of escapism, really. I was just like, I'm going to go find myself, right? And just
Yeah.
get myself outside of the environment that I've been in and figure out, who am I outside of this story that everybody sees me as. And so
Mm.
that's really when it kicked off. But most of my personal development journey had been, up until this time, really about trying to heal the part of me that felt broken, right? Because of decisions that my dad had made. And it was really interesting. So I walked into this seminar and it was kind of a last ditch effort. I got to the stage where I was just like, screw personal development. I could have bought a house, literally, with how much money I've spent on my own development and growth.
Yeah.
And I still haven't broken through a couple of little fundamental pieces. I definitely learned a lot. I definitely grown as an individual. I'd gained a lot more insight, but there were some pieces that really were still quite rooted in there. And it was only based on the encouragement of someone that I trust very deeply that I decided to give it one more chance. And so I walked into the seminar still with a story about my dad, that he had rejected me and that he had chosen another life because on some level I wasn't good enough. Right. And obviously there was an unconscious kind of decision, but it was there. And anyway, I walked out of that seminar. It was a very powerful seminar. Walked out of that seminar knowing, like, it being done. My dad loves me so fucking much. He accepts me exactly as who I am. He's very, very proud of how stubborn and crazy and not like him I am, right? I know that. I don't doubt that anymore. I was done. Now, the fallout in that for me was that I went through an entire identity crisis because I was just like, holy crap. I could see for the first time, like, how much of my life I had been directing based on an idea of trying to prove myself worthy in some capacity to anyone who would see it. And so then I was just like, well, okay, why do I participate in community groups the way that I do? Why do I do what I do as a profession? Is that because I'm trying to prove myself worthy? Why do I show up to my family in a certain way? The roles that I play, like everything was up for grabs, right?
Yeah.
And everything started disintegrating. And so there was this really interesting period. And in fact, it wasn't long after that that my body then followed suit. And I was literally put on my ass and had to really review the roles that I play and the identity that I had built for myself, like from an entirely integrated, like on all levels were up for grab. So it was a very, very powerful experience, completely changed my experience of myself. Brutal landing. When I first did psychosomatics, which I would classify as another one, it was a 10-day course. And we went in, and it's, you know, sometimes you can convince yourself of things just to make it safe for yourself. So, when we were going to the course, our facilitator said, you're going to need to bring 2 people on the last 2 days to do clinic work so that we can see your level of skill before we send you off on your way. Just let them know they're going to have to be seen in their underwear because we're going to be reading bodies. And I was like, yeah, no worries. I can organize that. La, 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 la. Didn't even think that I would actually be spending most of the 10 days standing in my underwear.
Wow.
So, you know, they had these 10 days. Anyway, long story short, I came out of that event and out of my first bodywork session high as a kite. Like, I literally felt like I had taken ecstasy and my sensitivity had increased. I had an orgasm standing at the beach, looking at the waves, just like reflecting on water. Like, it was, my ability to tap into pleasure just went through the roof. And that lasted about 6 months. So which one is more ideal? I don't think either can be. Do you know what I mean? It's not a...
They've each of one has got a place.
Exactly.
It's got a place, right? If it takes you, you know, there might be a heavier or denser energy around something and it takes you a little bit longer to process it. And then others, you go through it so quickly that you come out feeling you're high, like you've released from it. So it totally makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I find it very interesting, and you know this, and you know, sometimes, remember when I was going to say something earlier and it just left my head?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that?
Clearly, clearly it wasn't meant to go down that route, because as you're talking about the, you know, the rejection and your stuff with your dad. I literally had a journaling session this morning. My brain was all over the place. I was like, sit down, journal, Leonie, create some space so you can see if you can clear some stuff that's sitting there. And the minute I take the pen, I would look up and I will go, oh, I wish I can just, that plant is not in the right place and the bees are not seeing it. Maybe if I move it this way, and then I would, Leonie, here, what's going on here? And then I would sit and I would want to start writing, and then I would look up because I'm thinking about it, and then my eye will, you know, something will catch my eye, and I will go, oh, I need to go and do that. Oh my God, I forgot about and I stopped, and I realized that in that moment, as I was sitting right at that place where I was going to tap into what was underneath the surface, my mind, my subconscious mind, my old patterns was taking me away from the work.
Of
So I
course.
was sitting, and it was all around, the fear of failure,
Mm,
but also not the fear of failure. It was the fear of disappointing,
mm,
and particularly disappointing my dad.
mm.
And so I dove into that, and I was like, well, it's not really the fear of failure, it's more the fear of disappointing people. And then it was playing out in my business, in if I don't achieve this certain thing within, the academy or the podcast or with my clients, I am disappointing them, therefore I am a failure. So I was sitting with this whole cycle. So it's interesting that you've gone to, your dad, and that's
Well, and
exactly where I was this morning.
yeah, and it's so interesting because our dad is the first expression or reflection of our masculine.
Yeah.
And what is our masculine is our the avenue in which we provide. So it is often
Yeah.
associated with, if you're in business, with your business, or if you're not, with your career, right?
It is, yeah.
And so if we've got blocks around our dad, then it's going to show up in how you earn your money.
Yeah.
And which
Yeah.
which is beautiful, because if you're having issues with your money, I'll say two things about this. If you're having issues making money,
Mm,
then you're either going to be something about trying to prove yourself, not wanting to disappoint, whatever, and you've got whatever it is that you're doing, your behavior, your actions, your offerings are all tinged based on this
mm.
desperation,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
people feel, right?
Oh,
And that
absolutely. Yeah.
that reflects back. The other way that we can have our money kind of played with, I guess, is the opposite to be true, is mum. Because what is mum? The receptivity. How
Mm.
much am I willing to receive? So my level of deserving comes from mum.
It's the receiving. Yeah. 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 It's very interesting. Now, what I want to do, because I mean, we've done this work for,
Mm.
for many years. And what I want to do is I want to just kind of bring it back to somebody who is sitting with this perhaps for the first time. Now, you do obviously a lot of the psychosomatic work, the body work, the nervous system regulation and things like that. I want to bring this down to a very basic step for a person who is struggling with, let's say, something with their father or money or whatever. Let's say you're sitting down and there's something that you're struggling with. When they're writing and they feel this come up, is there a nervous system regulation or a psychosomatic exercise that you can give to the audience that they can do in that moment to help just regulate as they work through?
Yeah, so I think, again, I don't think one thing is the answer. I'm
No,
a
no,
big
no.
believer that all roads lead to Rome,
Yeah.
but I would suggest that the first thing is to really be very clear on the fact that your mind is delusional. So
Mm,
whatever is coming up, understand that the only thing that it's showing you is that you have resistance.
mm.
And if there's resistance, it's because the mind is trying to keep you safe and you are close to change.
Yeah.
So this is an indicator to
Yeah.
keep on going. Okay.
It is.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
not a thing to listen to and believe the words that are being said. However, I do believe that the words that are being said do offer us breadcrumbs to kind of unpack what is actually going on further, right? So
Yeah.
there is that piece.
Yeah.
How to regulate your nervous system within that process, you can do a couple of ways. The easiest way is through your breath,
Yeah.
is just taking a couple of deep breaths. The breath is, I mean, it's getting more and more, credit, I guess, at the moment, has been sort of for the last 5 years or so. But it is certainly, that is the first port of call, is to see if you can regulate yourself through your breathing. I really advise a deep breath into the belly. The deeper you can breathe, the deeper you can feel.
Mm.
So if you're finding your breath is stuck up here, it's because there's something down here somatically that you don't want to be feeling. But that's
Yeah. Mm.
often where the answers lie. So if we look at the body, you've got your base chakra. I don't know how much your audience knows, but you've got your base chakra around your perineum, essentially.
Yeah.
You've got your sacral around your womb, or where an energetic womb would be if you're a guy, just below the belly button. You've got your solar plexus just underneath where your ribs kind of pull in.
Yeah.
And then your heart chakra, your throat chakra, third eye, and crown. Now, the solar plexus is a very interesting energy center, in my opinion, because it is where your power lives. It's also where your I am lives. So my identity is expressed through my solar plexus. Now, the challenge with that is that there are often, for many people, parts of themselves in their sacral, which is your creative kind of energy zone, and your base, which is your primal self, that do not align with who I've told myself I am, or who others have told myself I should be, or however I've contorted myself to be in this world, right? And so the solar plexus at that point will actually constrict, so that the primal self and the creative self becomes suppressed and stays down there. Now, how that influences your breath is that your breath then won't be able to go down very far. So we can actually help our solar plexus to open up and allow for the ownership of all of those parts of ourselves, and then thus become more powerful by breathing deeply into our bellies. If you can really expand your belly out, so I even like to put my hand on my belly button and see how far I can push it out on the in-breath, and really draw it back as close as I can to my spine on the in-breath, the out-breath, and then just keep on doing that. Once you feel really confident with that, you can also then put your hands like on your lower ribs and see, and this is a trickier one.
Out breath, right?
See if you can expand. So belly up, ribs out, and then chest up.
Yeah.
So it's a three-step breath.
Yeah.
That breath does take a lot of practice. It is easier to do whilst you're laying down. It's not necessarily something you can do when you're journaling, but it will certainly help you to regulate your nervous system. And it will help you on many, 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 many layers, not just in your nervous system. So even just taking 3 deep breaths, as deep as you can, and trying to expand the depth in which you can reach in your breath will be helpful. If you still find that like bit of anxious feeling in you and you're struggling to get the breath down, you can also do like a nervous system reset. There's stages to this, so you can go really, really simple, or you can go a little bit more complex. Either or, really, it only takes about 3 minutes. But the simplest way is just to tap just here.
Okay.
Just tap in there. It's one of the easiest access points to the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is like the mother nerve. So if we just tap in that, focusing on our breath, like I can already feel my system going, thank you very much. Really enjoy that.
Yeah.
And then just, some nice stroking as well. So they're the things that I would recommend in like a journaling session or something, just to keep yourself present, because
it is.
That's all. Like every time the mind wants to escape, just reassure yourself, this is a good sign. I'm actually getting close to something here.
So this is the thing is that we want to remind ourselves that we are safe, and the breath does that, because in a fight or flight situation, our breath is not deep and slow. There's not a lot of breath, right? So I want to just remind people of the power. This is why we breathe. So perhaps you can just speak into that, of the difference between, being in fight and flight and how your breath is, and then, when you relax, that safe space, so that people can understand when we say breathe.
Yeah. So obviously you're always breathing all of the time, otherwise you wouldn't be alive. So yay, good job.
Yeah.
Conscious breathing is a slightly different thing. So if, like, the way that I think about the breath, and particularly in regards to being in fight or flight or rest and restore, is anything that is going to activate will put you into some form of fight or flight. And we can use that for cathartic breath work. And we can use that as a pathway to, emotional release and things like that. But if you're breathing like this all the time, it's really not a great idea. You want to be in it for short bursts. So anything that's going to over oxygenate, and that happens through a greater level of inhale than exhale. Simple way to think about it. Okay. Anything that has a greater level of exhale than inhale will down regulate. And that will bring you into more of a rest and restore state of being.
So a longer out breath is
Longer
going to
out breath.
restore.
Yeah, definitely. And even if like at first it's literally an extra second, I like to try and double my exhale to my inhale when I'm down regulating. But, you know, ultimately work with where you're at. It's not about a comparison to how other people said to do the thing. So I actually like, I really like the Nerida Shares breath, which is it kind of brings balance. But that's one of the only ones that I do as far as framework is concerned systemically. The rest of them, I very much feel into where is my body at in this moment and what is my capacity at right now. And because I've been on the health journey that I've been on, I've gained quite a high level of sensitivity to my nervous system. And so, you know, even just, sometimes like there was a period of about 3 or 4 years where I couldn't do activating breath. It was too much. It was just way too much. It was definitely too much for my nervous system. So everything that I could do, I would show up to a breathwork session and I would just have to run my own breath. And that also has to be okay.
To know. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And to honor yourself, no matter what the guidance is. But like, you know, there were physical things that I had going on that if I tried the activation, I would literally tip myself over into higher levels of symptoms that I really didn't want to experience. Having those down regulation and being, you know, this is one of the things that taught me to not show up to try and prove myself as anything, but to show up and honor where I was at, right? Was my body guided that.
That's the awareness, right? It's important for you to, like you said, you know, as an example, if you are going to, let's say, a breath work session with 30 other people and the guidance is to breathe in this specific way, you need to have that sense of awareness. You have to have that awareness about yourself and to know that I am not capable of handling what they're giving, and you need to settle into what feels good and right for you in that moment. It's really important. Yeah.
I think so as well. Yeah. And you'll know, like, you know, I knew the first breath work that I'd gone to in years where I did a down regulating breath for half of it. And then there was just something in me that was like, you could pick it up. As if you listen to your body will communicate. I mean, your body's always communicating, but if you listen to it, you will receive the communication of when it's time to move to different phases. It's not about holding on to this story then that, no, I just can't handle that. It's like, right now, this is what's right for me. And then, you know, tomorrow it could be something different. So being able to be flexible and unattached to the perception of self and the story of self, I think is really a very beneficial way to move within the dance.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I talk, you know, to my students or my clients, and I explain this dance between awareness and intuition, and you just described it there, but I want to bring this in, is awareness is always being conscious, here, now, present, know what's happening right now. And then that guidance that we get, that intuitive hit that we get that tells us to take the step this way. Today, it's good for you to do the down regulation. Tomorrow, we can go a little bit, you know, maybe we need to, you know, go a little bit harder. The next day, we need to go no-go. Don't even go there. You need to, that's that dance between awareness and intuition, the guidance and being present. And it's a continuous thing. And the more you step into that, the more powerful your exercises and your journey will be, because you will be guided every step of the way.
Well, and I would suggest that the more grace that you have within it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
You know, it's really funny. Like a lot of people that I work with are frustrated. A lot of people that I work with are very overwhelmed and, you know, feel quite lost in amongst all of that. And, you know, and I've been there myself where I have taken on so much stuff because I just want to do I love life. Like I am a very big lover of life experience. I think it's fantastic. And, you know, and I want to experience it all. And so sometimes I can want to experience, you know, maybe a little bit too much all at once. And so, you know, I can understand the drive, but, It's very interesting, the difference when it's overwhelm and frustration versus inspiration and power. And for me, a lot of the difference comes through that experience of grace and the following of the intuition within it. And when you let go and have faith in your own intuition, have faith in the guidance of whatever you want to call it, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Whatever that is for you, call it whatever. I think it's all the same thing anyway. But you know, when we can let go of that, then what we have to simultaneously let go of is the idea that we're wrong.
Yes.
Or the idea that we're not where we're supposed to be, or the idea that we should be something else. None of that can exist when you have faith in the intuition and you're moving with grace. They can't coexist. It's like gratitude and fear.
True.
So it's not that we don't oscillate somewhat, and you know, we all have a victim inside of ourselves, and that needs to be honored as well. So we're all going to step into that sometimes. That's cool. I have victim party all the time. It's great. Love me a good Netflix binge. Oh, I just watched what's it called? Ted Lasso. Oh my God, it's the most wholesome show in the world. Just saying, like, I love it so much. Put a smile on my face. But you know, like, it's just important to know, oh, that's my victim speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, so my victim comes up generally when I have maybe crossed a line of either taking on too much, or I'm hitting a new edge of my experience and I'm being called to step into a new realm of myself. They're generally the two times that my victim will show up. One is protective, obviously. Well, they're both protective. And so I just ask myself which one's playing out, and then that will then direct how I'm going to move forward. But either way, you've got to acknowledge the victim. So I'll still have a victim party. And that just, you know, a couple of hours, sit down, woe is me, life sucks. Everybody should save me. Come on.
Yeah, totally get it. See, the thing is with that, in recognizing that, right? And this is the importance of that state of awareness and building awareness, is that you can then recognize when you are having a pity party. You can recognize when
it's a very conscious decision.
When you've been activated or triggered, as most people say. I prefer activated because it just feels better.
Well, and it is an activation into action. You are being called to do something.
Yeah. So, and by having that awareness, and you know, I remember in the beginning, and I know that you would be the same. When we were first activated, it would take us weeks, months, you know, and potentially even years to get over this thing. But the more awareness you have, and the more you recognize those activations and where it's coming from, the more awareness you have, the shorter that time frame of sitting in it becomes. And that is the power.
I mean, that is everything that my work is about, to be honest, is making that efficient as possible. Because for me, you know, life is not indefinite. We do not have infinity here. We are mortal beings. We have a limited time on this planet. And, you know, I really, truly believe that there is a lot of unnecessary suffering. Like, I get that there's suffering inbuilt into life and that is necessary for our own growth and development, and that's okay. But I think that there is unnecessary suffering in people not understanding the signposts and the breadcrumbs that are laid out before them to follow, to create the change that will build on their evolutionary journey. And so if we can use those, so signpost, I call, like what you're calling activation, signpost.
Yeah, signpost.
Yeah. It's literally, this way,
it's
please.
Showing you. Yeah. It's gifting this you what it. Yeah.
Absolutely, if you could just have a look at this thing, it's going to make your life a whole heap easier. You know what I mean? And then you start looking at that. And when you're looking at that, your language, their language, the situation, the dynamic will start giving you breadcrumbs as to where does that come from? What is it actually asking of me? What is it forcing me to adopt, to act on, to communicate, to receive, whatever. And then there's your action point. Now we move forward. Okay, wonderful. Now I'm back in a state of grace. Fantastic. Can we live in the state of ease and flow for longer than the state of challenge? Most people are living in the state of challenge and frustration and overwhelm and pain, and they're getting glimpses of the grace and the pleasure. We want to flip it.
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're both required. So it's not about escaping one or the other, but just understand what they're for.
Yeah, it is. And we can stay, like you said, we can stay in grace for longer periods, the more we understand where this is coming from, the more awareness we have about the situation, about our energy, about what's coming up, our patterns, our beliefs, and everything.
Yeah.
You know, and it really is, it might, you know, for somebody who's just starting out, it might feel overwhelming. It might go, but I don't see this. Like, honestly, guys, if I can give you one tip, is just to become aware. Just practice awareness, and awareness will start filtering through into everything else, and it will make everything else a lot easier. So
Well, and be
start with one thing.
curious.
Yeah, that's it. Curiosity is also another one.
Yeah. If you can see something, I think instead of going, why me, which is often the thing.
Yeah.
Why
Don't
is
go
this
there.
happening
Yeah.
again? Why do I always, whatever? Your mind's going
Yeah.
to find answers for you no matter what you ask it. So ask it
That's it.
better quality questions.
Yeah.
Instead of going, again, what is this? What is this showing me? What is this? I love the question. What is this forcing me to do?
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm having, say, if we're in activation with each other and you've pissed me off for some reason, then, one of the things it's going to force me to do is it's going to force me to look at my role in the dynamic.
Yes.
The other thing it's going to force me to do is communicate effectively what is actually going on for me, because you are not the cause of my activation. You don't have a capacity to put your hand into my stomach and squeeze my organs. My body is doing that. It's my activation. I need to own that. But it's also my responsibility to communicate effectively around that. You know what I mean? So it's forcing me to communicate effectively. It's forcing me to, maybe understand my boundaries on a deeper level, maybe claim what it is that I want, maybe, God knows what. But life will force you to do the thing. The question is, are you doing it resourcefully or unresourcefully? And the difference between the two is it getting you the outcome you're looking for or not? That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And then, I want to, you were saying about looking at yourself. Then there's the other side of the coin as well, is when you find yourself in, that situation, you can go, is this my activation, or, is this really the other person's stuff? There is
well,
also
if you're projected
sometimes,
upon, yes.
yes, absolutely. There will always be something in there for us, because inevitably, those things are mirrors for us, right?
Yeah,
It
definitely.
just comes
Well,
up.
I
So
had a situation. I definitely won't be naming names, but I had a situation where a long-term friend of mine flipped very quickly and became quite resentful and angry, and was mad all of a sudden about, he wouldn't even communicate. It was just that it was that story of, if I have to tell you, then how do people say that? If I have to tell you, you should already know, basically. If you don't know the problem,
if
then
you
you
don't
don't
know,
love
then
me
you're not a
enough.
real friend type thing.
Yeah. If you don't know the problem, then and I'm like, well, I guess it just depends on how much the friendship means to you, if you're willing to communicate what's actually going on to you or not.
Yeah.
But
True.
it was really interesting, because whilst that was clearly his activation, I have, obviously I broke one of his rules around friendship without him having communicated said rule, which makes it very hard for people to live up to your rules when you don't communicate them, but that happens often. So obviously there was a line that was crossed, that was not communicated, existed, which is fine. And then there was a projection. Now, my learning in that was really looking at, okay, where have I not communicated clearly? So in my perception, he's not communicated clearly to me. Right? Not willing to open up himself on a level to me. Now, whilst that friendship has dissolved, and, and I wish him all the love and everything, like I don't have any hard feelings, the lesson for me is, where was I not clearly communicating?
Yes.
Because that was my awareness, right? My awareness was going to his communication. So the reflection has to be my communication.
Yeah.
Now, it's not necessarily going to be in the same way, because we're different humans, but that's the breadcrumb. The breadcrumb is my communication. And it's up to me whether or not I take that and actually use that to grow myself, or I take that and victimize myself.
Yes.
Either way.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the work, right?
And that's the work.
That's the awareness. That's the sitting. That's the reflecting. That's the working through your nervous system, working with your body. That's the work. And it can either be a heavy negative thing, or it can be a beautiful, beautiful gift.
Yeah.
So even within the activations and within the work, if you view it from a place of gratitude and grace and appreciation and understanding that this is being presented to you so that it can support you in becoming lighter, freer, happier,
Oh, for
then
sure.
yeah, it's a gift. I see it all as a gift.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the last time something activated me in a way where actually I can remember I actually had a client probably over a year ago that, and again, in that, as it was happening, I immediately knew the lessons. I immediately knew how and why it was happening for me. It wasn't a
Yeah.
nice experience, but it took me at the most, because it was a really heavy thing that happened. It took me at the most maybe a couple of days,
Yeah. And
and
look, I
that was
think
the longest. Yeah.
we have to understand that it's not always supposed to be nice.
No, no,
Do you know
because
what I
there's
mean? Don't be
learning.
afraid of the discomfort, because it's like if you were afraid of the discomfort, you're never going to go to the gym. You're never going to,
That's it.
eat good food. You're never going to do the things that are good for
You're
you.
never going to try new things. Yeah.
Exactly. So the discomfort is, make friends with discomfort, make friends with loneliness. I think they are very, very handy things to be friendships with.
Yeah.
So, I don't enjoy being in trigger. I really don't.
No,
It's mucky, and it completely interrupts my jam. And
does
I
all of
have a,
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, it's not about, um, I'm mindful. There are people, especially who are new to this sort of work, there's a tendency to want to, and I did it myself through positive thinking. There's a tendency to want to light and love everything. Like if I just think positively about it, if I
Yeah.
just send love to that person and, put a white light around everything, then everything's going to be okay. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
No.
sorry, I call BS. We are we are human beings having a human experience. We are spiritual beings for sure, having a human experience in this
Yeah.
world. We are made of matter. There are things that we are here to experience. If we were just going to light and love it, you would still be in the ether. Okay. So
Yeah.
there is desire, there is pain, there is all of these things. And we don't want to discount any of those, because then we're, again, suppressing parts of ourselves.
That's it.
Bring it all in, integrate it all. So it's really interesting. My psychosomatic teacher, she'd talk about this in the, her name's Rachel Anastasi. She's amazing if anyone's interested. And she'd talk about it, and she's like, if I'm going to have an argument with someone, I'm going to have an argument with someone. I'm going to enjoy having the
Yeah.
argument with someone. I'm not going to hold back what I have to say. I'm going to say
Feel it.
what's true for me in this moment.
Yeah.
If I'm having sex with somebody, I am going to indulge in the pleasure of the sex. If I'm eating a donut, then I am going to ravish the shit out of the donut. Like,
Yeah.
the whole thing, like live life.
Live it. Experience it. Yeah.
Experience it. Don't be afraid
Yeah.
of it. Like, I understand that some people, again, particularly when you're new to it, it's sort of like, if there's a lot of people who say to me, I'm scared to start feeling because I don't think I'll be able to stop. Right? I'm afraid to feel my sadness because I don't know how to make it stop. I'm afraid to feel my anger because I don't know how to make it stop.
Yeah.
Now, is there an overflow period? For sure, but it's actually quite short. Generally, it's like 3 days, and there might be an integration period that lasts for a couple of months within that, but then you're done.
Yeah.
How long you've been, for decades, people carry this stuff around, and then that
It's
informs
true.
their perspective of the world. Whereas you can get this done in a couple of months, my friend. Pull up your big girl pants or your big boy pants and let's get into it. That's
Yeah.
efficiency.
See, you're making a really valid point there, is that sometimes you have to, feel it, but then sometimes you actually have to make that decision. Somebody said the other day, set your alarm clock for 5 minutes and sit, complain, wallow, whatever, feel like shit. And when the alarm goes off, literally get up and get the fuck on with life,
Yeah.
essentially,
Moving
because you
on.
actually, and Joe Dispenza says this, right? He says you have this moment that something happens to you. Okay, so this thing happens, and then if you don't make the decision to let that go and process it in the moment, it eventually becomes your personality,
Absolutely.
because you're holding on to it for so long, and it becomes days, weeks, months, years, decades. So
Yeah.
if you can
You
really
refer
come
back
into
to
it.
it. This is
Yeah,
just like that time that Bob told me that I wasn't, that I was ugly or that I wasn't smart or
yeah,
what, that happened when you were in grade 3.
true. Yes, that's it.
Jesus.
There you go. You know what? Just you said it, and it's like, this is one of the things that I was sitting with this morning, and you just said it, and it hit home. Like, thank you so much. This conversation was going to go somewhere.
You're
So
welcome.
this morning, so this is something that happened to me when I was at school. Okay, so I am one of those kids who, I was not designed for the system. The system
Mm.
wasn't designed for me. So school for me was really hard. And I recalled two moments this morning that happened to me when I was at school, which made me feel not worthy,
Yeah.
made me feel like a failure. One of them was, I had not done my math homework, because at school I was made to feel stupid. I know now that I'm not stupid and I'm actually quite good with math, but back then didn't do the homework, got to the class, and because I didn't do the homework, this old woman teacher, I was going to use another word for her, but she literally picked me up and she put me into one of those big dustbins outside the
Right.
classroom. She picked me up and put me into the dustbin.
Mm.
Okay. And obviously everybody laughed at me.
Yeah.
There
Using
was this
shame to
big thing that
teach.
happened.
Super
That
resourceful.
is, yeah. So that obviously had a big impact on me. And then there was another instance where I was sitting in this class, and the teacher asked a question, and she had two or three students in the front of the class with her, and they were kind of very buddy. They were like teachers' pets, right?
Mm.
And she asked me this question, and I answered it from what my understanding was, and obviously it wasn't the right answer, but they turned and they laughed at me.
Mm.
So, and you said it, obviously that created, I didn't have the understanding back then as a child to process this, right?
No.
Now here I am looking back and I'm trying to process it, but you just said it so well. You said, it happened. Get over it. Get
Well,
over
yeah. I
it.
mean, look, we
There
don't
is,
want to
I
discount the
understand
inner
that there is
child.
the deeper, I understand that there is the work there, but
Yeah.
sometimes all you need to hear is that, Leonie, it happened. It's
Yeah. It
you,
doesn't
it's got
actually mean
no
anything
reflection
about
on
you.
who you are.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. And in fact, I would say it happened for you. So my
Yes.
questioning around it would more be like, how did it serve you? What did it force you, again, using this language, what did it force you to adopt within yourself that has served you now moving forward? And why have you needed that skill, that personality trait, or whatever it was, right?
That's it.
Because
It
it
does. It
it
gives
does.
us, yeah, it does. Yeah. 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 Totally get it. Yeah. It's powerful stuff. And we can, like, literally, we can sit and we can
Oh,
kind of
we could talk for hours, me
hours and hours on
and
this. I am
you.
mindful of your time though. But Nerida, it is, you know what, it has been, I loved our conversation, and we will definitely get you back on to come and have more conversations with us. And I think the more we give people real world experiences, like your experience with, with your dad, and your friend, and mine with school and your clients, and the more we bring real life experiences into the topics of, nervous system and awareness and intuition and somatics and everything else, I think it makes it tangible for people,
Yeah,
easy
well,
to
and
understand.
I'd just love to share one last thing, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Is
go for it.
just going on from what we were just talking about, is that I think it's important to bring a deep level of compassion to yourself on your own
Yeah,
journey.
yeah,
Because as you were saying, that example happened to you when you were a kid at school, and you only had the awareness of a child at that time. Now, you know, our brains are literally formed when we are children. 85% of the brain is formed by the time you're 8. There is a shedding period that goes on as a teenager, but it's, you know, it's minimal. Most of it's happened by the time you're 8. And so we really do create our fundamental identity at that age as a child. And if what we're talking about here is your unconscious mind, that's what's been developed. And so as you're living as an adult, you know, we are wanting to stay safe. The unconscious mind has one job, and that is to keep you safe. And how that is translated is to keep you in the same. And so the unconscious mind is millions of times more powerful than the conscious mind. And so it will override you at times. It will have a lot more influence on the actions that you take, the way that you speak, all of that sort of stuff. Now, that's not to discount your responsibility in it. It's to give you a level of compassion for yourself, because it is that child who was told that they were stupid, or who was told that they're not good enough, or who wasn't given the affection or the attention that they wanted in their particular love language, even though their parents were loving them in many, many other ways, you know. But it's that child that feels those things that is often responsible for some of the behaviors that we don't understand about ourselves. And so it is that child that needs the reassurance and the love in order to feel safe enough to let go of these things. So we're literally in our growth and development, we are reparenting ourselves. We are retraining that child that they are beautiful, that they are loved, that they are safe, that all of their unique little quirks, we love them, right? Because so many people have been told, no, quieten down, you're too much. And like, I get it, I'm a parent, you know, and I've got wild kids. I've really encouraged them to be wild kids. But there's sometimes, even with my thinking around parenting, that I'm like, holy fuck, like, I just need a second. Could you just like turn it down just for one moment? And that's all it takes for a kid to hold on to that and then run it for the rest of their bloody life.
Exactly it.
So, you know, it's not necessarily an indication of how your parents parented you, but it's just, this is your soul path.
It's what we took on.
Exactly.
We took on behind it.
And sometimes there was some pretty nasty behavior behind that. So I'm not discounting that either. But either way, it's like what we're actually dealing with when we're dealing with all of this stuff is a little kid. And so, I say to people, how, if your child was going through the insecurities, or your niece or your nephew or whoever was going through the insecurities that you're currently facing in your life, how would you treat them? Because I can guarantee you it would be a lot kinder than what you're currently treating yourself.
That's it.
So let's bring some kindness back in, and some compassion for yourself in the journey, and just understand that it's, like you said before, it's onion layers, man. It's one step at a time. And we are all on the journey. Nobody has all of their shit together. Everybody has to go through the muck. Everybody has to start at the beginning. You know, my son, every time he learns a new skill, he gets super frustrated at the beginning. And I'm like, dude, everybody who's a megastar in this thing, this is where they start.
That's it.
Take a deep breath, put your big boy pants on, and keep on showing up. And so that's, you know, at that point, that's where we need to be consistent. It's just understanding that in the beginning, it can be hard, but it is worth it. And so we just need to keep on being kind to ourselves, keep on loving ourselves and coming back, and then following those little intuitions, those awarenesses that you say, you know, and you will be guided.
Absolutely will be. You know, I feel like I want to just make mention of, you know, when I was talking about my journaling this morning and the stuff coming up in that moment, as you were talking about, you know, really nurturing the inner child as well. So as it was coming up, I was going through some nervous system regulation. So you know, just this morning, so breaths and standing up and just shaking. And as I was shaking, I was envisioning myself having a conversation with the younger Leonie, where, you know, I can remember being in certain places and certain things. And I was just like, it's okay. It's okay. That is not a reflection on you. Like, this has just made you stronger. Look where I am today. Everything is fine. So working through some of those processes, then, you know, it's just little things that we can do to help us process these things.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we had a good shake dance. I'm running a masterclass at the moment, and this morning was our somatic class. So I had good group of people all going absolutely bonkers with the shake dancing, which is a great nervous system regulation. Yeah.
Beautiful. Nerida, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I loved every
Pleasure.
minute of it. We will definitely get you back. So before we go, there's a couple of things. So can you please tell the people, the audience, where they can find you? So first do that.
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. My name is not that common, so just it's literally Nerida Mills on both, and you will find me there. You spell my name Nerida, and then Mills. That's the best way to find me. I've got some free ebooks, like I say, masterclass. I've got new masterclass coming out in February, which is exciting. So there's a ton of ways to get involved without having to spend any money. Give the work a try, see if it's for you or not, and then go from there.
Beautiful. Okay. I will have all the details in the show notes for everybody. So the links will be there for people. And then, so I've got one last question for you. Okay. So if you can only leave one awareness, one thing that you've learned that you can bring to the audience, what would that be?
The thing that is the one that I've really tried to impart for my own children is that all of you is perfect.
I love that.
All of you.
That's hard. That might be hard for people, but understanding that you are perfect in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And
that's beautiful.
I include in that your capacity to change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is, because we all have the capacity to change.
Yeah.
It's a choice, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again for joining us. As always, you guys can find all the links in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode. Take care. Bye.
Bye.